Okay, now we are going to work on the Philips Hue skill for my custom voice assistant Mycroft, and we're gonna improve upon it. So I already kind of started working on it last time, but it's not very good how it's set up right now. And to be honest, I would argue that my skills weren't quite as good then than they are now, although time will tell in this video. But I think I have a better idea for how we can make more dynamic commands and do better practices with how it's set up and everything. I think we can do that in this video now, so we're going to try to improve the skill. So if you need a reminder, we can do like half or double brightness, or we can turn them on or off. So if I go like, hey Mycroft, half brightness, then the light should go to half the brightness, which works as you'd expect. And then on and off would work as you'd expect as well. And then, hey Mycroft, full brightness, that would also work as well as you'd expect too. Which, that actually did not work just now. I'm guessing it didn't quite recognize it right because I said it too quietly. Hey Mycroft, full brightness. Hopefully that'll work better now. Why isn't it? It worked earlier today. Hey Mycroft, full brightness. Actually, it's not working because we don't have a full brightness. We have a half brightness and double brightness. That's why. Hey Mycroft. Hey Mycroft. Hey Mycroft. Double brightness. Then I think it should work. Yep, there we go. That only worked with one of the lights, strangely enough. I might have the program set wrong. Yeah, let's find out. And then we'll improve upon the script. I'm pretty sure I have it set to only do... So let's actually change the directory into the skill, because we're probably going to need that multiple files in the directory. So let's do that. So if I go into our... Oh, we also need to go into the Philips Hue one. So if I go into our init script... I don't know why this happens, but it happens every time I look at the file. I'm going to ignore it and then write any changes I want to. I don't know why that popped up the way it did. But yeah, if you look at full brightness or double brightness, yeah, I had a typo right here. Not sure if you can tell, but this says 1 for all 3 of the lights, even though earlier it's correct. So we need to change that to 2 and 3. That's why it only messed with the brightness of one of my lights, because it was actually programmed wrong. Oh, and this is programmed wrong too. So let's do that. 1, 2, 3. All right, that should fix that issue. We have a 1, 2, 3 in all the other commands too. So we're going to try to add most of the functionality that I want to add now. I want to fix this manually because I don't want to wait for the skill to restart. And then eventually we'll restart the skill and hopefully that'll work. So what do I want to be able to do? So I did some very simple commands for right now because I wasn't sure how to do dynamic commands at the time, so I picked commands where I wouldn't have to make it dynamic to begin with. So yeah, let's also, first of all, I don't like the way the if statements are structured. I typically like to do this structure instead. So if double in query words dot lower, that's what I'd rather do instead. And actually we don't even need to necessarily do that query words index 0. It takes our full utterance and splits it by word rather than doing index 0 to get more flexibility in our commands and be able to say it in any order pretty much. It would be better to just do results if it's in results. So I think I should be able to structure it like that if I'm not mistaken. And I should be able to do the same thing here. So if, oh, let's also do lower so that it's case insensitive. So if half in result dot lower, and then we can go like that. And that does need to be in quotes, my bad. So then we'll do if off in result dot lower, if on in result dot lower. I think that's a slightly better way to do it, and then it doesn't matter where the words are in the command. It should still be able to know which thing we're talking about, because it ultimately looks for a keyword and then activates whatever statement. So what else do I want to ultimately be able to do? Well, obviously I want to toggle it on and off, which we have the ability to do that now. I want to be able to increase and decrease the brightness. So rather than doing, let's say, half brightness, I may want to be able to increase it by a certain percent, or even set it to a certain percent. So we're going to try to get that figured out today. I want to be able to do the same thing with color temperature, since it's got a range of like 2000K to 6500K. I want to be able to set the color temperature to a specific K, or be able to increase or decrease based on where it is right now. And then it would also be nice to be able to actually set the color of a light too. So we're going to try to do stuff like that today. So how do we even go about doing those things in the first place? Well, I think I'm going to open up another terminal just so we have a place to test out commands before we actually put it into our skill. Something that I think is useful when creating skills is normally you have to restart the skills service to update every change you make, which can take a bit of time. But I think it's useful to do a raw script first, because you don't have to refresh and waste a whole minute every time you want to do that. So in this case, I've created a script called test Philips, and then I can basically test out how things work right here. So now let's think about setting the brightness. So I think for right now, I want to do specific numbers, like any given percent. So I might want to do something like set brightness 20% or set brightness 50%. Let's get that working real quick. So I'm going to get out of here for now, and I'm going to temporarily go to the CLI of Mycroft, and then I can basically see how it recognizes certain commands, and then based on that, that's how I'm going to treat things. So I'm going to go to something like, hey Mycroft, set the brightness 20%. So as you can see, it actually knows which skill apparently, because that's obviously part of our skill for the Philips Hue. So it looks like the way it recognizes a number is it does a number with a percent at the end. And how do we set the brightness normally? Well, let's take a look at the documentation real quick. So if I come back onto my other system, I believe we were using Phue Python library. So right here we can kind of learn how it works from a programming perspective. So if we want to set the brightness of a light, oh, by the way, why don't we iterate over all of our lights rather than manually setting like 1, 2, 3? Why don't we iterate over however many lights we have? Because I believe a Philips Hue the bridge can handle up to about 50 lights if I'm not mistaken. At least that's how it was a few years ago. But if we have 50 lights, we wouldn't want to manually hard code all the different numbers. And that mistake I made before where only one of the lights came on, that's because of a bad programming practice I did of hard coding the number. So I think it would be wise for us to actually fix that first. So let's come back to here and let's create a loop. But first of all, how are we going to do that loop? This is where using the test script can be quite useful. So I'll just go back into our script. So how do we iterate over all the lights? I'm kind of looking through the code. I'm not entirely certain how to do it, but I'm going to guess it's something like b.lights or something like that. So to test it, I'm just going to do b.lights. And I'm guessing we would do it around parentheses, but given that it's not like a object-oriented getter, it might not be around parentheses. That's the kind of stuff we're testing right now. So then I just do Python test Philips, and I'm doing Python 3 because I think that's what Mycroft uses. So I want to be consistent with that. List object is not callable. It's recognizing it as a list object, so that means there are not any parentheses. So just get rid of those parentheses and let's try it again. So this actually gets all the lights as an object itself, which is perfect because now we have the number of lights. I have 3 lights, so I would expect to see that. And I can also get their individual names too, it looks like. But right now I'm fine with just doing an index. So b.lights is how we get the individual lights. So that means I should be able to take the length of that, which I already know that's going to work, so there's no point in doing this. But we have the correct number of lights, so now we know how many times to iterate. And it'll start from 0, so we could just take I plus 1. So let's set that up here. So I should be able to say for I in range, the length of, I can access B, yeah, because I access it at the very beginning right there. So I should be able to say b.lights. So for each and every light, I want to change that to I plus 1. And then of course, same with that. And then that should work for all of them. So I got rid of a little bit of code. If I had like 50 of them, this would still accomplish that in theory. So let's set another loop right there. Change that 1 to I plus 1. And then, yeah, we can get rid of those 2. And as you can see, I'm literally repeating myself trying to set that up, which is not very efficient. I shouldn't be doing that, but whatever, I can still work with it. So I'll just do I plus 1, then I should be able to do it there too. And then same thing here, I plus 1. Okay, that was kind of inefficient, but you get the idea. So now it is a little bit more optimized. I'm not going to test it yet because I'm pretty confident that would work. We'll find out later if there's any mistakes. Okay, so now let's come back to actually setting the brightness. So it looks like we just have to set light, the index, the brightness, and then whatever it is. So it looks like it takes a number between 1 to or 0 to 254. And I'm going to want to be able to reference it by a percentage. So therefore, I think we should create a function that takes a percent. And then we can set it accordingly. So yeah, if we're doing a good programming practice, we would be taking a percent. So why don't we set a string to like brightness equals 20%, for example, or set lights to 20%. Then I can kind of simulate the utterance right here, and then we can sort of set things accordingly. So I'll create a function which will eventually load into our program. I'll probably just call it convert brightness, and I'll just probably take a brightness argument. unless I decide to have the variable global. That kind of depends. I may end up passing the utterance through there and then just having it parse out the brightness. I'm not really sure how I'm going to separate the brightness yet, but right now I'm a little bit more concerned about getting rid of that percent from the actual brightness. So I think for now I'm just going to create a duplicate line and then just change this to 20%. Like that, and then we can kind of focus on extracting the number from that percent, because obviously we not only need to get the number alone, but we also need to convert it from 0 to 254, so don't forget that that's also a thing. So to be honest, I'm not really sure how to get this number alone. I have a feeling it's probably going to involve regular expressions. So I think what I'll probably do is copy this and then use AI to generate the idea. So I'll probably use Google Bard for now, because that can also do code, and I've been enjoying that recently. So write Python code that can take the following statement and isolate the 20 from it, and then I'll just do that. So I specify it's in Python, and then yeah. So I think for now I'll copy all this code and just kind of take bits and pieces from it. So for now, this will look a bit messy, but bear with me. So this we do want. We already have our statement, so we don't necessarily need to do that. So it looks like it's doing a match and then creating a capture group around the number and taking that alone. And then I feel like this if statement's probably unnecessary in this context. Not really sure, but I'm gonna probably change this to like number alone. I mean, probably not the best name in the world, but it makes sense to me, so that's what I'll go with for now. So let's bring that in, and then we can also grab the brightness from the whole statement, because that's how it's actually going to be with the utterance that we say. So that should get us a number alone. So I think let's call that. So print number alone, and then we'll call the convert brightness function, and then I guess we'll just pass in the brightness from there, and then that should work. Then we got a print statement down here. We're probably going to want to comment that out for now so we don't have a lot of noise. Match is not defined, probably. Oh yeah, I forgot about that. So let's comment that out like so. Let's try that. Statement is not defined. We just gotta rename that. Probably should have done a replace. So let's grab the brightness and just change it with that. Hopefully that'll work. So matches 20%. It gives us a span. So that doesn't really give us the number alone. Oh, match.group index 1. Let's take that syntax. I forgot about that. So let's grab number alone. And then I'm probably just going to change this to like number syntax or something. Number alone equals like number syntax dot group 1 or something. And then that should be number alone, I'm guessing. Whoa, I'm not doing that. I'm using barrier to control this between my computers, and I'm guessing barrier just glitched out randomly. So let's try it now. 20. That worked. So now we can isolate a number from the percent. But that still doesn't quite give us the actual brightness yet. Hence why I didn't name it accordingly. because now we do have the number all by itself. So once we have that, now we need to convert that on a scale from 0 to 254, where 0 is 0 and 100 is equal to 254. So it's really a proportion that we're taking here. So let me visualize the proportions real quick. So we know the percent, which is 20 out of 100. However, what we don't know is the number out of 254. That's the number we're trying to figure out right here. So if we use proportions in math, this is a situation where knowing math can be kind of handy, but with AI it's probably not necessary. So if you look at these fractions, then we need to take 254 times 20 divided by 100. So how do we break that down? Well, if we come up here, then we do actually take 254. I'll probably put this in parentheses. So 254 times whatever the number alone is, divided by 100. That's what it's always going to be, I think. So what should we name that? I can't think of any special name other than brightness, num, or something like that. So in theory, that should give us the brightness. So why don't we return that? Return brightness num. And then we can print the convert brightness, and we should get what we want. X is not defined. Of course, I just kind of use that as scratch notes for now, so I do actually want to get rid of that. So let's try that once. Okay. So we have a, you can see if we updated the skill and waited a whole minute only to find out that error is happening. Not good. Okay, so I think it's treating number alone as a string when it's supposed to be an integer. So we're gonna have to convert number alone into an integer. That's what I believe the problem is. And that was on what, line 26? Yeah. Number alone equals int. That basically. I think that should convert it to an integer. Okay, so 20, I guess, translates to 50.8. Is that right? So let's set the brightness to 50%. That should be about 127 roughly. That's right. Now, I don't think it can be a float with a decimal point, possibly, so we might have to convert that to an integer when we actually use it in the Philips Hue context. Actually, because this is a test script, we can. Let's actually use it in the context we want to. Let's delete that. We now have the ability to convert the brightness into what we want. So let's create a loop where I had ranged the length of b.lights. So what do we want to do? We want to basically take this b.setLights, the brightness, and then of course this is I plus 1. I put it in the wrong place. That's where it belongs. So we want to set the brightness to that convert brightness number right here. So we'll just take that, and that should be what we want to do if we want to set the brightness to a specific thing. So if I run that code, that should set it to 50% if I'm not mistaken. So it's possible that that's list index out of range. Let's hard code a number just to make sure it isn't like a data type issue. Let's duplicate the line just so I have my old syntax. So this should be like 50. Let's just make sure we have our for loop structured correctly. We might find out that earlier we had it structured wrong as well. That's a bit darker than 50%. Oh yeah, because it's between 0 to 254. Right. And I'm not actually using the function yet, so 127 would be about 50. That's about right. And then I think if I go beyond 254, then I believe it'll just do the largest it can. Yeah, basically, if you print out the statement, it'll give an error saying that it can't go beyond whatever number, then it just does the highest it can do. So, yeah, so actually, the convert brightness is where the error was, because if I put a number alone, then it works fine. So my guess is that it has to be an integer. So I'm gonna probably convert that to an int. And let's see if it fixes a problem. It does. So now I can take the brightness directly from our statement right here. So if I set it to like 69, it'll get a little bit brighter. Not much, but it totally sets the tone, as you can see. So obviously if I were to do 100, it should do 100. So we can take our utterance and using that convert brightness function actually be able to properly convert it. How cool is that? So it looks like our for loop was in fact structured correctly, so we're not going to have to correct that, which is kind of nice. So we have a way to properly convert the brightness, or in other words, set the brightness, using an utterance in the way I'm probably going to actually format the utterance. Like set lights to 100% or whatever. And if I don't say percent, there's a chance it'll recognize a number wrong. Like if I say 4, it might do the word spelled out 4 or 4 whatever. Or 2 could literally be like that, or that, all of which is incorrect. But if I do a percent after it, it's likely going to do the numerical number of whatever it is. And it's always going to end up being correct as a result. So I'm going to say percent so that it always does it in this numerical format, because it has to be in that format to work at all. So we actually have a valid way to set the brightness now. So now that we have that working, we can load that into our actual skill now. So I think what I'll do is I'll probably grab it from this file. Let's memorize the line numbers right now. So that's 22 through 26 right there. We're going to take our convert brightness function. That's why I like writing functions, because then I can do it in a test script and then I just dump the function into my skill and it works exactly as you would expect. So something to also keep in mind, we're going to need this import statement too. And we can technically get rid of this now. And that's, so that'll work. And then, yeah, we can just add this into our if statement. So actually, I think I'll grab all the lines we need. So basically lines 10 through 17, those are the lines I'll need in the file. So let's save that, come back into our skill, and then I'll probably write it up here. So I'll do a sed dot bang, which is a vim thing, basically grabbing those lines 10 through 17 from test Philips. So that's basically what we need right there. I'll indent that real quick, and then we'll put it where it belongs. So this convert brightness, that actually doesn't need to be indented. So I'm just gonna take it, we'll put it toward the top. I believe it's supposed to be outside of the class, otherwise it will error out. So actually we do want that indented like that. And then let's see here, So then this will go inside an if statement. So I think what I'll probably do is I'll just have an if statement that says probably set brightness. So L if set in result dot lower or brightness, then it can be in any order and result dot lower. Then we can just grab our code right here and paste it down there, indent that, and I think that's exactly what we wanted to do. So we got that convert brightness. We're gonna also have to import RE, and since it is built into Python and we didn't have to install it separately, we shouldn't have to add it inside of our manifest file. So like this OS that I've added in the manifest file shouldn't be necessary because it's built into Python. However, this I had to install separately, so that does need to get added. But RE is built right into Python, so we don't have to worry about that. I think we're now at a point where we could probably test it out. Actually, first, before we do any of that, we might need to set our locale file so that it properly triggers. So on our intent, I have things hard coded. So I think what I'll do is set brightness, and then I'll just put like a filler right there, and then this kind of acts as a black void, if you will. So anything that's after set brightness will simply be an acceptable command, and it'll be dynamic. I also don't like how I have this all uppercase right here, so I think I'm gonna set them to lowercase. So yeah, now that we got that working, let's come into our Mycroft folder, then we'll update it triggered. We'll update our skills service, so do skills restart, and then I'll come back into the CLI, which obviously that didn't work just because I'm in whatever directory. Barrier's glitching out again. I think that's because I'm hooked up wirelessly right now. If I was on Ethernet, that problem wouldn't be happening. So now I've officially committed all the changes. We're likely not seeing anything appear there because it isn't meant to right now. I think if I try a command, we will learn that it's not quite updated yet. Yeah. This tells us that it's reloading the skills. So basically, I usually wait until I see the word remote configuration updated. Okay, now it says remote configuration updated, and hopefully there's no errors anywhere. So let's do a command that we've always been able to do and make sure those changes we made with the if statements work. Hey Mycroft, half brightness. Amazing. So this is just an echo print statement for debugging purposes from before. So obviously I can type in full brightness. Oh yeah, I don't even have a command for that yet. I'm probably gonna want that too. Hopefully we don't forget that. You know, I have an idea for how we can set that. I'll show you in a little bit. So I'll just put double brightness for now. I'll show you how I plan on doing like full brightness and basically arbitrary words that translate into percentages ultimately. I'll show you how I plan on doing that. Anyway, let's see if our command works. Not 100% sure if it will. I'm having a little bit of pre-TSD right now, but let's give it a shot anyway. Hey Mycroft, set brightness 40%. Okay, we got an error. Right, that I should have caught that mistake. That's the problem with working in a separate script, but it's not really a logic error. like itself. It's just adding the temporary script into our actual skill. So let's come back into here. Don't know why that happens. And then we just need to change that brightness into results. So I'll just change that to result. And then I'm also thinking, let's double check the locale just to see how we word that. I want to make it so I can say the word the, so I'm going to go like this. And then by leaving a blank right there, I can also just say set brightness. That'll allow me to do that too. So I figured as long as we had to do that, then I can set it that way too. So now I'm just starting the skills service, and now we just wait for it to update at this point. I always like to look at this too, make sure there's no like syntax errors, because syntax errors will show up immediately. Behavioral errors will show up later during the execution, like what we just experienced before this. Okay, now let's try it. Hey Mycroft, set the brightness 20%. Amazing. I can get real specific with the brightness, which is nice. Hey Mycroft. Hey Mycroft. It freezes up every once in a while. That's pretty set. Come on. Sometimes there's a bit of latency. That's why having status LEDs is quite helpful. I'll show you real quick. So yeah, I have status LEDs right here. As you can see, I do have a red one, but the reason I disconnected it is because my breadboard script, which I may have shown in the past, I'm gonna show that after this, by the way. I want to do this skill so that during my next status update, I can include what we're doing right now. Being a little bit sneaky right there. But yeah, so I modified the breadboard script so that it works with this IP address, which is different from what it typically is. And I programmed it wrong. So now this red LED always comes on whether there's actually an error or not. And that's gonna bother me seeing that 100 times. I don't even want to bother fixing it. So I just took this light out just so I don't get annoyed by it. So yeah. Alright, let's increase the brightness. Hey Mycroft, set brightness 69%. So we have a dynamic command now. How awesome is that? So why don't I add some keywords that I can use in place of percentages? So how am I going to approach that? I'm going to make it so I can say full brightness, and I'm not going to actually set it to full brightness until I have that keyword working. So just bear with me about the fact that I don't have full brightness right now. So yeah, let's actually come to our test script because I'm gonna make mistakes throughout the creation. So yeah, let's come back to here. So I think what I'm gonna do is create a dictionary which allows me to use arbitrary words that translate into percentages. So how am I gonna do that now? Well, since I can get the number alone, I think I'll create another function that can basically translate it. I'll probably just call it something like translate percent. This may not be the best way to do it, but I'll do something like this. My variable naming is probably not the best, but as long as I know what it means for right now, it'll work. If you ever contributed to that in the future and you have any better names, then by all means change it, as long as it doesn't like wreck functionality that should be working but now isn't because of your changes. So anyway, let's translate our percent. So basically I'll be passing in number alone since that is an integer, and that'll work nicely for our conversion. Oh, wait a minute. But that's actually not really gonna work, because it'll be some word like full or something along those lines. In which case, number alone is actually not going to work at all, is it? So, yeah, let's just come up here, duplicate this. Let's say instead of it being a percent, it'll be something like full brightness. And I'm now realizing the utterance doesn't even have the word brightness in it. But actually, because of how I have my locale file set up with the, the command right here, because of how I have this set up to do command right there, it'll allow me to do whatever percent brightness, and then I can add the word brightness if I want, or whatever. I'm a little bit confused for how I'm setting up the utterances, but I guess basically it will come down to trial and error. And if there's a command that I want to use but it doesn't work right, I will tweak it over time. I mean, I think that's probably the best way to handle it for right now. So yeah, I might want to do something like full brightness. How am I gonna reliably be able to extract my custom word? So how do I have my locale set up right now? Set brightness or set the brightness? I suppose if it contains those keywords, then anything after that would potentially count. So I think let's just get something started right now. So I want to create a dictionary of like custom words. I don't like the way I just did that, but whatever. I should be able to, I'm not sure if that indentation is going to be correct. We may end up having to tweak that a bit, but I guess we'll just see how it works for now. So I should be able to do a bunch of key value pairs. So like full brightness. If the word full brightness is involved, then that would get set to 100. So those brackets indicate a dictionary, by the way. I could probably do like half brightness. That's equal to 50 or whatever. So I'll probably, for now, I'll just print custom word just so we can make sure that it works how we want. Custom words index, and then instead of a number index, it's something like half brightness, right? So that's what we would print. So let's execute translate percent, and then I guess we could just throw in anything right now because we're just doing a test. And is that the only thing that we're printing right now? Yes. Let's actually make sure real quick that we're not doing anything else that would cause an error. I think I'll come to here and just comment that out for now. But let's do, that's because it's supposed to be comma separated. I did know that, it's just I didn't think of it right there. So now I think it'll work. So as you can see, we got back 50. So I put in half brightness in quotes right there, and it did a lookup. Half brightness is 50. So if I change this to full brightness, then it'll do 100. So that's how we can convert words into numbers. So that would allow me to say words like full brightness or half brightness or whatever it is. So that'll ultimately give me the number of what I want. So what I need to do now is figure out how do I take this num percent and then give me what I actually want. ultimately I still want to be able to do this convert brightness right here, but I want to also be able to, in addition to just saying like a number and a percent, do dynamic words like this, the full brightness or half brightness, right? So I think what I'm probably going to do is essentially I'm going to kind of scan through this dictionary, and if my utterance contains anything that's inside of here, that particular value will end up getting used. I think that's probably how I'll treat it. If it's not inside there, it won't end up getting used. So what I believe we can do is create a loop for IAD range, the length of custom words dot keys or something. I believe that's how you get the actual stuff that's in quotes, all the key value entries. You just do dot keys. I think that's how you do it. I used this for another skill not too long ago, and I believe that's what I did. I will be showcasing it when I do the status update in a bit. So I believe that will give us our keys. Let's find out. So I'll just print. Actually, I think you can do a for each loop and do like for key in, rather than doing range, you can do like custom words dot keys or something like that. And then I think you can do like index key, if I'm not mistaken. And then it should just do all of them. Yeah, look at that. So for however many keys there are, that will print each and every key. So that's how you iterate over every entry. So basically we'll take our utterance and then check. Basically, so actually I'm gonna come to here, then I'm probably gonna change this to brightness. Then we have our fake utterance from here. So we're gonna basically go through every single key. So I think for now I'm gonna comment that out and then print what does the key itself give us. I think that will give us, so it gives us exactly what's in the quotes, which is perfect, because then what I can do is basically create an if statement and say if key in essentially our utterance. So in this context, brightness is our utterance, and that comes in as a num% argument. So if it's in that num%, so basically if our key exists in our utterance, that's essentially what this statement is saying right here, then why don't we print what that is, and then that'll tell us, okay, this is what's in the statement. Or we could do that custom words index key. Why don't we do that? Because then it's pretty obvious that it works if we do that. So let's do that once. So right now it says full brightness. And actually we could also do like a else statement not in there or something like that. So I printed 100 and then, oh, because it ran a for loop. That's not really what I shouldn't really be doing that. What I should technically be doing is returning what it is. Yeah, I think I'm gonna return the custom words index key. And then if it's not in there, then I'll just come out here, then do return false probably. I think that's a better way to handle it. So I think that's how I'm gonna structure things now. So yeah, if our key is in there, then return that. Otherwise, it'll end up being false. That's probably a better way to handle it. Also, do you see the beauty in me doing this in a test script rather than my actual skill? I mean, look how much I'm coming in and out of stuff. Even this is not very efficient compared to how I could be doing it. I could literally create a Vim key binding to run the script, but I'm doing it this way. This is still relatively efficient, considering I don't have to set anything up further, but yeah, this is still a lot more efficient than updating the skill, which takes up to a couple minutes, and sometimes it errors out too, which sucks. Oh, and then obviously we're not seeing anything because I never printed it, so we want to print what we're returning essentially for now. So right now it says 100 because we have full brightness inside of there. So now what if it's like a percent instead of that? Then it shouldn't return anything because there's nothing in there. It returns false, which is exactly what I would expect. And to be frank, we don't even need to do that. We only need to return stuff if it's relevant. Actually, we might want to return false because later on we may end up using an if statement that we can check if it's false. And then we know not to do anything with that. If it's true, then we will. So actually returning false may end up being useful. So yeah, if we say like any percent, then do the behavior we did before, the stuff we just added. So now if I do like half brightness, we should get 50 rather than false. Why did that not work? Oh, because this return false, Python's super sensitive to indentation. This return false should be outside of the loop, because we don't know if it's not in there until we're actually done with this whole loop and we've gone through literally everything. We don't know if it's in there until then, so yeah, that's how we should do it. So yeah, now we're getting 50 because we specified half brightness. And then you can imagine you can create a whole bunch of definitions right there. So if I say something like null brightness, that's not even a thing. So therefore I will end up getting false. And then if for some reason I have a variant of like half or full brightness, I probably manually add all the variants, even if I have duplicate numbers. I don't care. I think that would be the best way to handle that. One other thing I would probably do is not hard code the list of possibilities right there, because what if I end up adding more entries? I don't want to have to restart the skills service just to update that. So in reality, I would probably load this from a file and then convert that into a dictionary. Fortunately, one of my skills does this already. So if I take a peek inside of my OpenScript, let's go back in there. But if I take a peek inside my OpenScript, I actually have a function right here called load quantifiers, and what that does is it basically loads them all from a file and then converts it into a dictionary. So that basically allows me to do a comma separated file as denoted right there. And then I can convert that into a dictionary. That way I'm not hard coding it into the file. And if I had multiple skills that reference the same thing, I don't have any duplication, which is also great. So that's probably something I would do. So let's figure out what lines this is right here. So 33 and 24. So I'm gonna add that function to the script as well. I want lines 24 to 33. And then we can store that file wherever we want on our system. So let's grab those lines real quick. So I'm just gonna come here and then we'll do .bang. Specify 24 to 33 from ops, Mycroft skills, Philips Hue. It did end up here in my trigger phrase just now. You can tell if it does because suddenly this will mute itself. So Yeah. Anyway, oh, this is from my open script. So just load that file. So there's that code right there. I would probably modify it a little bit, but actually I may not have to. This is technically not quantifiers that I'm doing. I'm loading percent words. I'm not going to change any of the logic on the inside. So I think rather than doing this custom words like this will basically return a dictionary from the actual file. So I want to define custom words equal to load percent words, and then I specify the path to the file right here, which I'm going to hard code as that, and I'll probably call the file something like %words.txt or something. So that means I'm going to need to create a file in that directory. So I'll just come into there, and then I'll create a file called %words.txt. I'll actually save that out because I have a different file with the word quantifiers in there. Yeah, quantifiers.txt is basically where I use it in my other skill. I'll explain how it works later on, but all we need to know is this is a key and that's the value right there. So it's comma separated, and sometimes I will have a comma directly in the statement, then I might make it semicolon separated, but for now comma separated is perfectly fine. So we just need to know for now that it's comma separated. So let's go back to the %words and let's add in what we've defined right here. And actually, let's see if I can even copy that into the clipboard buffer. Not sure if that's even gonna work. No, it didn't. Bummer. Well, regardless, I'm gonna grab lines 24 to 27 from this file, save it out from our init script. Oh man, those are the wrong lines. Oh, because it wasn't even from the init file, it's from the test script. So this is in home and then test Philips. Yeah, there we go. So now we can basically convert this into, so there's no quotes there at all. Right there. So rather than doing that, so this is comma separated. I'll just manually do like half brightness 50. Okay, so that should be correctly formatted. And then I should be able to reference this now. So this should ultimately result in the same thing, but now it's in a file, which is going to make it a lot more dynamic as well. That's a good practice to have too. So let's make sure we're getting the same behavior real quick. So we're getting false, we're getting no errors, so it must have worked. And then if I set the brightness to, oh, I'm changing the wrong thing. Let's do full. Then I think we would get 100. So that's basically the same thing, except it's loading from a file. And the beauty of that is we can change this file without having to reload our skill. And that's pretty efficient. So let's add like nice brightness. And this is actually the brightness that I do most of the time for real. That is about perfect for me. Understandably, because I'm in the bedroom, sets the tone. So yeah, now let me adjust this to nice. This is literally the only line I'm changing in the script. I'm not even messing with any other line. That's the beauty of that as well. And it still knew exactly what I was talking about. Just changing one line. And that's literally the utterance. When I'm using the voice assistant, That's not even gonna be a thing at all. It's just gonna take what's directly from the command. So that may seem like a lot of work, but now I can do custom words for specific brightnesses. And this will also help for future code too. So like one thing I also want to do is set the color to like red or yellow or blue. This will work perfectly for that too. We'll be able to do things in that format also. So yeah, now we have a nice way to set the brightness. That may have seemed like a lot of work just to set the brightness, but now I can get really dynamic with my brightnesses. I can do it based on percent or custom words. Well, not yet. We're not actually done with it yet now that I think about it. I kind of have the logic for returning a brightness, but I don't technically have the real logic set yet. So yeah, I literally didn't change much inside this function because I have another function that handles like the percent stuff. And if there isn't the special keyword in there, it's just simply not going to do that, which is pretty cool. That's exactly what we want. If I say a hard number, it's going to do that number. If I say a custom word, it'll do that. And I'm probably going to want to be specific on my custom words because if I say like a variant, that's going to be really hard to reliably deal with variants of this. So if it recognizes something wrong, like for some reason, if I say full brightness and it recognizes it as full brightness instead, for example, rather than adding support for that, I might just change this and then it'll still recognize it as the same thing. And I don't even have to restart the skills service because I put that in a file that gets read spontaneously. Every time it runs the script, it'll read that file. So any changes I make will apply instantly, basically. So technically, it's not going to really apply yet because this code is technically where we want things to happen. So convert brightness has to technically translate the percent and everything. So with the way it's returning stuff, yeah, so that's where this statement is relevant. So this translate percent just gives us a number alone. So technically we could do that. I'm confusing myself a little because there's so much stuff here. I gotta remind myself of what brightness actually is. So brightness is basically our utterance, it looks like. So this translate percent actually takes our whole utterance. Okay, so I think what we can do is we have that statement if. So obviously we're returning false if we don't have any special like word percents. Like if there's not a match in here, then we want to do the behavior we've always done. If there is a match, we want to do things a little bit differently. So here's where I'd probably do an if statement and say something like, with what I'm about to do, I think there's going to be duplicate code, but I'm going to do it for now. So I'm going to basically put that in. And what I'm actually checking is if not. So basically, when it runs this, it'll either return false or the number that I want. So if it returns false, then I want to just take the number. That might not actually be the best way because ultimately we do get a number back regardless of how it is. I think we might want to change our logic. So technically num percent is our utterance, and our translate percent gives us what the brightness is. It literally gives us a percent. So by definition, if we have a custom entry, we get a percent. But if we don't have a custom entry, we should get the original percent back. That way we can just call number alone as essentially to translate percent. So actually, if there isn't anything at all, we would want to return this, right? So maybe we want to run this code up here and essentially return this rather than false. That way we can basically set number alone to the translate percent. So here we can just take that translate percent syntax, set number alone to that, and then I think that will simplify stuff quite a bit. I think that's probably how we want to do it, because ultimately we are still getting a number at the end of the day despite all that other complexity. So at this point I just want to make sure that our convert brightness works correctly, I suppose. That's all I care about at this point. So I'll just basically print the convert brightness. And let's see, the argument should be the utterance. So I suppose that would just be brightness. And then I think we should get the same behavior as we would expect. So the nice brightness translates to that number, right? Then I would expect that half brightness would translate to 127, right? Oh wow, that actually set it. Oh, that was setting it the whole time. It was just the same before. So then obviously if I change it to full brightness, then it should go to 100%. That is the behavior I want. But now let's say I'm doing 30%. That does work. So it can take an original percent as well as a custom word that we define here. That's pretty cool. That's very dynamic. So I can basically do it literally however I want. That gives a lot of possible commands right there. Let's change it to full brightness real quick. Actually, it'll be faster to just do a percent. And I suppose if I wanted to also do a good programming practice, it would make a lot of sense for me to, rather than just taking the raw percent, do like a max or a min function so that it doesn't go above 100 or whatever. But the Philips Hue library actually handles the logic automatically, so I'm not going to worry about that. So even though that took a really long time, we technically have the logic to set the colors as well for the most part. We can take a lot of what we did here and apply that to colors as well as color temperature. The principle of setting the color temperature is more or less exactly what we just did here. So we can take a lot of this code. But for now, I think it would make sense for us to take what we've done here and add it into our skill. So yeah, we got that. We're gonna want to come back to our skill, modify this, and then let's see. So let's set brightness. It'll run convert brightness, which now we have updated code for that. So I'm going to delete that to denote that we have updated code. What lines do we want now? Now we're going to want to optimize it for pasting. We do want to do that percent words and stuff. Oh, and then also we're going to want to change all instances of brightness into obviously what it's supposed to be. So basically we want lines 9 through 37. That's the code that we've just done. We literally only have to bring in functions. All the if statement stuff is still intact. So we're going to want lines 9 through 37 from that file. So we'll do a dot bang sed 9 through 37. And then what file is that? Our test file in the home folder. Test Philips. We actually don't want that line. Load percent words we do want. Convert brightness. I think that's all we need to do to add it to our skill because of how we designed it. This logic is literally still the same. How amazing is that? I would normally have to change stuff right here as well, but I don't. That's pretty incredible. So let's save that out, and then we'll restart our skills. And then I try to go to the CLI as quickly as possible because if there's any errors, they show up pretty much right away. So if you look closely right here, we should see Philips Hue somewhere. I think I'm going to end up stripping out all the other default skills because I don't even use them. I pretty much only use stuff I've created myself. Okay, perfect. So this is what I was looking for here. Philips Hue loaded successfully, so that means we have no syntax errors because that would error out if we did. So now we're just waiting for this to update. Remote configuration updated. That's what I was looking for. Hey Mycroft, set the brightness to nice number. Okay. Oh yeah, I literally said I need to replace that word with, I think, result. Well, in this case, I think I need to take num%. Actually, I'm gonna pass in result, I think. That would probably make more sense in this context. So I'll probably go to, yeah, so I'm gonna change this to result. And then I'm gonna change that to result as well. So yeah, let's see, number syntax, so translate percent is used right there. That's the only place it's used. And then convert brightness. I think that will work out just fine. I think that's all I would have had to change. I'm not entirely certain. So now we gotta restart the skills service again. So that was more of a semantic error rather than a syntax error. So now we basically wait for it to say remote configuration updated again. I suppose we could do one of these. Alright, it is now ready to go. So let's try that again. Hey Mycroft. Hey Mycroft. Hey Mycroft. That's a little bit odd that it's not listening. Notice all that lag it's having right there? That might be playing a role in it. Hey Mycroft. I'm gonna type it just for testing purposes, and then we can restart it while we're making more changes. Uh-oh. We got another error. Guess that's the problem with doing different script files. To translate percent. Basically, we just need to look at our translate percent declaration. Oh, we're supposed to give it another argument. Wait, what? What was my logic there? Can I use num%? Because if so, then obviously there's no point in doing that second argument to begin with. Now, as you can see, I literally had to wait a whole minute or two just to find out that error is happening. That is not a good way to originally program this functionality. You should be using a whole script. So let's restart again and make sure that there's no skill errors. So if I have a syntax error, then a skill error will happen right here. I almost like those ones better because they're way quicker to debug. Anyway, load percent, remote configuration updated. Alright, so this may not really seem that efficient compared to using a pre-existing library. I try getting a pre-existing library work, but it's too technical for me to even figure it out. Besides, this is an interesting learning process as well, which is also why I am doing a custom skill for the Philips Hue lights. Hey Mycroft. Yeah, it's still having the problem, so I'll just manually type it. I'll do set the brightness, nice number. Oh my gosh. When is this ever gonna work? So it's definitely the wrong data type of some sort on line 26. That's really weird that that wouldn't work because num% is not getting mutated at all. So when I call convert brightness, I pass in result, which at this point it should be the utterance, right? So that's the utterance. When I run this, I am in fact passing the utterance through. So therefore this num% is the utterance. I'm literally checking if one of the keys, wait a minute. So now I'm kind of questioning if it's loading the keys correctly. Ooh, well, yeah, no, the quantifiers, that variable is still consistent. What is num% at this point in the program? That's my instinct. So I'm gonna run os.system. We'll do a f string with, or is it an r string? I'll do rf just to be safe. So I'll do echo and then num%. I'll echo that variable. This is kind of a pain, but then at least we can see what the variable is at this point, because it's kind of acting as if it's not what it's supposed to be. So let's restart it right there and wait for it to load. Okay, now it's updated. Let's see what's going on. So set lights to nice%, or yeah, set lights nice%, whatever. I think that'll work. Did we get any relevant output? That's what the num% is. Wait a minute. Oh, I think I might have an idea of what's going on. So first of all, it's not nice%. If we actually look at the file, it's nice brightness, not nice%. So if we were to come back into the command line interface for it, let's try nice brightness rather than the nice brightness. Then it works. I think it was erroring out if it's something that doesn't exist. Yeah, if it's something that doesn't exist, then it'll error out. But it doesn't actually stop the program from working. So I think I'm just going to ignore this problem. It's not even a problem. So then if I want to set it to full brightness, that works. And I could have verbalized this, but I have to restart the voice assistant because it's not listening for some reason. And I said I would do that when we start working on our next command. So yeah, I actually typed it incorrectly. I used the wrong syntax. So you can imagine that I come into here. If I want to do like nice% instead of nice brightness, I can do that. That would technically fix the problem. And guess what? I don't even have to restart the skill now. So set lights nice%. Now what previously errored out works perfectly fine. I didn't even have to restart the skill. Did you notice that? That's the beauty of doing it in a file like that. Even though it seems like a lot of messing around up front, it definitely has its benefits down the line. Also, I think it's a little bit slower because that whatever's making the voice commands not work right now, I basically have to restart Mycroft to make it work. Hey Mycroft. Yeah, it doesn't listen, but if I restart Mycroft, that will fix it. And I think if I restart it, it'll also be quicker too. That's what I'm trying to get at. So yeah, it'll give an error if we do something that's invalid, but it doesn't actually stop the whole thing from working. So I'm not going to touch that part anymore. If it has an error with the command, not my problem. Well, yes and no. I can add the word if I need to there. But yeah, I mean, whatever. So I might even add one for like full percent or 0.5%. Yeah, I might do something like that, and then that gives me a lot more variation in how I can phrase it. It might be a little bit redundant, but it's very simple to do that. And it's kind of a set it and forget it type deal for the most part, so I think that's an acceptable way to do things. So I think I'm going to call it good. So we technically also should add the ability to increase and decrease the brightness by a certain amount, but I think for now I technically have the ability to control the brightness however I want. I just can't do it relative right now, but honestly I don't really care that much, so I'm not going to worry about that now. Now let's move on to the color temperature, because honestly I wouldn't mind doing a warmer color temperature this late at night. This is not a good color temperature for this time of night, by the way. I would probably do a warmer one. So yeah, let's do color temperature next, and then we can maybe have it be a little warmer. And we can come back to that brightness stuff if we want. Right now, let's get the main functionality, and then we can dial in later if we want. So yeah, let's do the color temperature next. So first of all, how do we do the color temperature? So let's come back to my main computer, and I believe if we were to look at this library, I believe there's a thing called CT, which is a color temperature. However, you'll notice that there's a color temp and then a color temp K, and both of them are referred to as CT, which is a little bit strange if you ask me. So yeah, so the color temp is typically a number between 154 and 500. However, I'm used to color temperature being in Kelvin, and I would prefer that. By the way, this sets the range limit, by the way, so if I go outside of the range, it'll basically just know what to do. So yeah, since CT refers to this and this, it's only going to control this unit of measurement for color temperature, whereas CT will not control the K color temperature. So we need a slightly different way to be able to control the color temperature. So let's come back to the code for a bit. So let's come back to test Philips. So as far as all this code that we just declared right here, I think I'm probably gonna comment it out for now, because we probably won't need that for a while, and it makes things messy, to be honest. So I'm just gonna probably move this to the very bottom, and then it doesn't like clutter up the code. So here's our workspace. So let's get the color temp in Kelvin. So how do we do that in the first place? Well, we can do that b.lights. So ordinarily probably be able to do something like this, where I say CT, then I can set it to, I don't know, 6500 or something. Well, it's already 6500, so let's do something lower, 3000. If we actually end up trying to do that, I think what that actually ended up doing was setting the mid-red rather than the actual Kelvin. So if I set that to 6500, one of my lights became warmer, but it's not quite the temperature that it should be. It's a little bit warmer than you'd expect, as I just mentioned. Yeah, so as you can see, it's a little bit hard to see with the current exposure. I would like to maybe, unfortunately, with the wireless cam, I don't have the ability to control the exposures, but if you look closely, you can see that I have a warmer color temperature than the 6500K. So yeah, setting it to 6500 didn't work because it's using the mid-red, which is like between 154 and 500. So that's actually probably the 500 mid-red. So how do we actually go about setting it in K? So what we actually want to do instead is b.lights index whatever light. And if you remember from here, there's color temp K. Well, that's one of the properties of the actual light. So if we do dot color temp K, then we can set it that way. So let me do 6500. That's how you set the K color temperature. So if we want to set the K color temperature, this is probably the way to do it. I don't know if it's the most proper way to do it, but it definitely works. If we want to, we can obviously do that for loop and then just do index I. So for I in range, so length of lights, then I can just change this to I, and then you can imagine that it will apply to everything. Oh, then of course it's not lights, it's b dot lights. So let me change it to like 3000, and let's see if it controls everything. Yep, it does. Kind of hard to tell. That's actually not a whole lot cooler than it looks like it should be. It is a bit cooler though. Let's set it to 2000 once and see what happens there. So that does get a fair bit warmer. That's about as warm as it goes, I think. So that is actually working as expected, whether you realize it or not. It looks kind of awful on the camera, but whatever. So we'll set it back to 6500, and then that'll look a bit more normal. So that's how we're going to control the color temperature. So honestly, the way we were setting, I've been forgetting to restart the voice assistant. So now the voice assistant's resetting. On my breadboard, I have a button that initiates a reset, and to prove it, these lights come on. While it's restarting, those lights come on, and then when it does the remote configuration updated, then they automatically shut off when I know it's working. The red light will also turn on if I plug that back in. But yeah, every time I run a command, the red light will come on, and that will really annoy me. So yeah, I don't do that. So as far as the approach for setting the color temperature, let's now learn how the voice assistant recognizes stuff. So like if I say set the color temperature 6500K, how does it recognize that number? I want to go to the voice assistant as soon as it's done restarting and then find out how it does that. I think to minimize confusion, I'm going to change this brightness variable to result. And then, so basically the way it recognizes it is it typically does a number then K after it. I did some experimentation a bit ago, and the way it tends to recognize things is essentially if I say like 6500K, it's likely going to do that. There's also a chance that it might do something like 6250K in that format with a comma. So that actually depends on how I say it. So if I say like 6500K, it'll do it like that. But if I say 6500K, then it'll end up doing the comma separated format like that. Also, the lights are still on minutes later. It still hasn't restarted yet. So I might end up hitting the button a second time and see if that works any better. But sometimes it will get stuck trying to restart. That means there is something clearly wrong and a restart was needed. It can happen at the most random times. It's a little bit buggy in that regard. But most of the time, pressing the button does work fine to restart it on the breadboard. Sometimes it doesn't though. So yeah, I'm just gonna have to wait and see if this works, and then I guess we'll see what happens. So yeah, this is basically how the voice assistant will recognize the actual number. It's likely gonna space the K like this. So basically we need a way to parse out that number alone, since the format we want it in is this format right here. Okay, it actually restarted this time, so hitting the restart button again actually worked. It's actually possible that it did restart the first time, but the remote configuration update, it never actually happened. It never said that in the console, so that's why the lights didn't shut off. That does mean that I can start issuing commands even if it doesn't say that, but it's likely going to work incorrectly when it tries to execute a command. So therefore I don't trust it unless it does say remote configuration updated. I'm going to update it sometime, the actual voice assistant, see if they made any improvements to that, because I haven't ever updated it since I actually got it in the first place. Anyway, so let's add support for this. So my utterance might be something like 6500K, and I want to get the 6500 all by itself. We're going to try to make a function that can handle all these different formats. That's why we have that written down there for reference. So if I say 6500, this is what will happen. If I say 6500, that's what will end up happening. So I think what I'll do is I'll create a function called convert color temp. I'll just put in color temp for the argument, I think. I should almost just use like result, because I'm technically passing in result, which is my utterance. And of course the utterance is the voice command that I say. So yeah, we'll get the full result essentially. So yeah, I guess just to clarify, when I call that function convert color temp, I'll be passing in results. So let's put in that. So this is essentially what we're getting in. So how can we get that number all by itself? It's pretty likely that there's always going to be a space right there, but whether they're the space or not, I essentially want the only number that's going to end up appearing in the first place. So I think I'll just make the assumption that it's always going to be in one of these formats. So I'll do that same regular expression stuff that I did earlier. So I'm just going to take that syntax and then paste it right there, because I can probably, the only difference is there's probably going to be a K toward the end like that. I do want to denote the color temperature in that fashion. So where did I put number syntax before? So the brightness variable, I think that's probably an error. That brightness is actually num% in that context. So let me come back to here. So this brightness should technically be color temp. So I'll just add that. And then that should give us the number all by itself, I think. So let's just print the result of that. And we should get 6500 all by itself. And actually I didn't put in a space, so that may not quite match. I did put in a space actually, so yeah, there's a space right there. So we got a match. We're getting 6500. So you can imagine that I can put in whatever number I want and it's very dynamic. So I could do like that number, for example, and that's what I end up getting back. So of course, yeah, that actually does convert it to an integer and returns the integer. Just out of curiosity, does it naturally handle the comma separated without doing anything special? Like, can you convert it to an integer and it just knows to remove it? Oh, it treats it as a tuple. A tuple is like an immutable list that's in Python. And what we ended up getting was the last element of the tuple, because it probably got 2 results. I don't know if that's actually what ended up happening. So we're gonna have to figure out how to remove the comma from color temp. I think we could just do a simple replace statement. It's likely that this is the only comma that's ever gonna appear in there, so we could just do a simple replace statement. So before we even do our search, let's do number syntax equals itself number syntax dot replace. Basically any occurrences of a comma, we want to empty it out essentially before we end up doing our regular expression search, and then that'll basically unify it. Once it's unified, then we can do our normal behavior. So that should fix it. Yeah, it's just having a problem with the comma. It assumes the first comma right there is the comma separators, so I think we can probably escape the comma, then it'll treat it right. Oh, and we're not replacing number syntax, we're replacing color temp. My bad. So this is supposed to be color temp. So color temp equals color temp dot replace. But yeah, it's possible that we have to escape the comma. Nope. Let's do that. There we go. So now we still get the number. And the beauty of it is, even if there is no comma, it'll still work exactly how it should. So now if we look at our formats right here, you can see that it actually will handle anything now. That's typically how the command is going to come in. And we don't need to add any special like numbers or whatever, although we could if we want. We may actually want to end up defining the color temperatures. So one problem we're going to run into is we can't use comma separated format because of this. So when we load our load percent words, we can take this function, except we'll make it so that it's semicolon separated rather than comma separated. So we'll just come to here. So here I'll just do load by temp words for color temp words. And the main difference, I know I have a bit of repetition there, but then I can specify semicolon. So then how did I actually end up calling it before? I'll just take these 4 lines. I'm not sure if I'm going to do it exactly the same, but let's just grab that. So first of all, we'll change that to color words, I guess. So we might want to actually grab this whole function and do like a translate temp. And then I think I'll just replace all occurrences of num %. I want to replace num % with, honestly, I'll just do num temp. Kind of a horrible name, but, well, I guess I forgot how to do a replace in a certain region. I thought I had it in Vim, but I guess I don't. But either way, I got it set now. So I've just realized I've done something pretty terrible. My code is like really messy now that I'm forgetting that I need to separate things out. Actually, I did do it correctly, it looks like. Although this is color words, and this has to be load temp words. I just realized I did something pretty awful. This is supposed to, these are basically duplicates. I'm gonna probably give it to this one because I think it's more incorrect. I'm just realizing what I actually want to do is this convert color temp should basically be in this syntax. So I'm gonna do, this is gonna be translate color temp, and then I'll just do, yeah, convert color temp here, and this should be translate color temp right there. So change this arguments over here to temp, and then here's where we're gonna convert. Basically we could do temp num and return that. And technically I'm realizing we could just return what temp num is equal to. We could go like this actually. Get rid of that. That's something I could have done earlier, but I'm not gonna change it. So I just rearranged the order of these 2 functions I were messing with. And so now we need to proportionalize. No, actually we don't. If I say a color temperature, it is direct one-on-one. No translation like this is needed. So honestly, I could just probably return number alone, which is equal to that. So honestly, I'd probably just return that. I think that might be all I need to do. So then I should be able to create a file in there called colorwords.txt, which is semicolon separated. So let's do what I consider normal is basically 2700K. So I think I would specify this 2700K because I think that's the format it'll be in. And then cold will be 6500K. I think I'll declare warm as 2000. And that's warm. So those are my color words. So let's come back to here. Of course, we're gonna have an error if we do that. So let's get rid of that. Okay. So obviously we should get the same results right now. Nothing should have technically changed. So we run the script. Load % words is not defined. Line 24. And obviously it has to do with the order of execution. Fortunately, the order of execution actually saved me quite a bit, because what I actually want to do is load temp words. If it wasn't for the order things were executed in, I probably would not have figured out this mistake nearly as efficiently. So I got a little bit lucky there. How about now? Something's converting a little bit sooner than it's supposed to. Maybe my files should not have the K at the end. Like this. Maybe it should be like that. We are supposed to get the number alone, right? Let me make sure, because I can't remember. Yeah, convert color temp. We do want the number all by itself, right? So I should be able to do a comma right there and still get the same results. Right, that's how it's supposed to work. So now if I do like warm or something, well, my OCD makes me want to actually change that to normal. 2700K, so it recognizes all the words too. We did end up doing that correctly, which is nice. So if I do like cold, I think is what it was, 6500. So now we can say a raw number or a keyword. Nice. Now we have to add that logic into our code. So hopefully I did a better design this time that I don't have to do a bunch of screwing around to get it working. So the lines we need are obviously going to be basically both functions. To load the words, translate the color temp, convert the color temp. We could honestly just take translate color temp. I think that's what I'll do. I want to make sure that works the same before messing with it. Oops. Okay. So translate color temp is what we want in our actual code. We're going to want that for loop as well. We'll move that. So we want lines 11 through 36. We're going to add those lines to our code now, or our actual skill. So let's save that out once it doesn't freeze up anymore. So now we're going to come to our skill, and I think we could just start on top here. So we'll grab lines 11 to 36 from the test file in home. Perfect. So that got added successfully. Then we're going to add the for loop, which is technically not correct yet. We'll probably do the whatever's in the print statement right now. Add that. Get rid of the print statement. That should be the correct color temperature, so let's move that. Then we'll add a statement if set in result dot lower or color temperature, color temp in result dot lower or color temperature in result dot lower. I know that's not really the most elegant way to have that structured. Then we can bring this in. I think I'd probably actually go something like that. Then that way it's a bit more readable. So I can see like all the if statement stuff is like that. Then in theory that should set the color temperature how I want. I shouldn't have to change anything, hopefully. So now we're gonna change the locale, the dot intent, set the color temp or temperature, and then whatever it is. And I know I'm not even referencing this command right there, but that doesn't matter. This just kind of acts as a black hole because you have to hard code all the different commands. But this is what allows us to be as dynamic as we are. It allows us to take any number, no matter what. So there's a whole bunch of different ways we can phrase it. And yeah, awesome. So now, hopefully it'll work on the first time this time. So let's restart the skills service. That took a lot longer than I would have liked. But looks like we got no skill errors yet. That's good news. Alright, we're ready to go. Let's see if I can make this warm now. Actually, I'm going to set it to normal because that's what I typically like. Hey, Mycroft. Set the color temperature normal. Oh, come on. Okay. So I think I made multiple chain mistakes if I'm not mistaken. So I was trying to figure out where things were happening. And I realized this was previously in the other translate function. And I don't actually remember all the things I did. I don't think I officially changed anything yet. But where we went very wrong is the fact that we have set in both of these statements. So even if I say set color temperature, this is what ends up getting triggered right here. So what ends up happening is it'll actually do the convert brightness even if I'm doing a color temperature, and then it does translate percent. And because there's no match in the percent words right here, then that's why it ends up returning nothing, because it's looking in percent words since that's what got triggered even with the color temperature. So that's a critical mistake right there. Using the word set is not a good idea in the statement at all. I would probably go like this. Yeah, get rid of set. Probably go like that instead. That way it doesn't accidentally trigger the wrong thing. I think that's what was going on this whole time. Took me a little while to figure out that's what was happening, but I think that's all it was. Yeah, I was like, why is there no match? It's clearly there. Well, apparently it was triggering the wrong function. So even if you're programming a custom voice assistant, you can run into classical programming issues still. That's one of the things that makes it really hard to teach, like creating your own custom voice commands, because you are doing programming at the end of the day. So hopefully I'll have a proper system established so that if I end up teaching other people, because I do want to simplify that process, so people make their own skills and they're not super familiar with programming, they're going to probably run into programming issues. They're probably also going to run into stuff that AI cannot help them with. And yeah, that could be a problem if people are like learning how to use it. So if I end up teaching others how to use it in general, I am going to want to do simplicity and figure out how to address when people run into errors like this and then have no idea what to do. Hey, Mycroft. Set the color temperature normal. Amazing. I'm also realizing I may want to have the word to. Maybe I actually can already with how I have it set up. Hey, Mycroft. Set the color temperature to cold. It does work. I didn't even add support for the word to, but it still works because of how I structured it. I mean, how amazing is that? It's pretty dynamic if you ask me. Hey, Mycroft. Set the color temperature to 5000K. Nice. So that seemed like a lot of work, but it giving me quite a bit of control, isn't it? Hey, Mycroft. Set the brightness to 40%. Even that works too. I would like to be able to compound commands together, like using the word and, but I feel like that's going to be a little too complicated for now. Hey, Mycroft. Set the brightness to 100%. That's pretty cool. I'm going to set the color temperature to a lower one just because of how late it is, if you don't mind. Hey, Mycroft. Set the color temperature normal. Hopefully you don't mind the slightly warmer hue. Cool. I'm not even gonna try to increase or decrease stuff relative to where we are. I think you probably get the idea on how to do that. I'm gonna end up showing it in a future status update anyway. That I've shown quite a lot already. It's pretty late. What do you want from me? So I think I will do the color now. Let's add support for setting the color to a specific color. And then maybe we can compound the word and if that doesn't take too long. And then there were some other ideas I had too that I'm not going to end up doing in this video, but it will probably happen in the future. But I mean, even though this took a long time, look at how much control I do have now. Yeah, I think I will add support for the word and tonight because I just thought about how that would be done. I have logic for that in my open script, and I'm actually realizing it might be a bit easier than I thought because of how I structure the code so far. So let's add support for setting the actual color to like red or yellow or blue. Because I do have Philips Hue lights and they support colors as well. Let's add support for that. Let's try to not spend too much time so I can get to bed soon. Because it is actually 3 in the morning right now. I don't like that, but I really like how this video is going if I'm being perfectly honest. I'm enjoying this, so I do want to carry it out. So the next step would be to obviously come back to the script that we were just testing. Okay, so let's move all this newfound logic over to here, and then this for loop, let's do that over there too. All right, that ends properly, so now we can start adding new logic for the basically the color. So as for the color, I'm literally gonna use the dictionary with predefined colors. And now I'm just realizing I don't like the way I named this because now I want to do colors rather than color temps. I would use color words for actual colors. Yeah, I don't love that I did that. I think I'm gonna rename it to temp words. So I'm gonna rename colorwords.text to tempwords.text, which means I'm gonna have to come into here and change any instance of colorwords.text to tempwords.text. So we'll update that later on. But yeah, now I'm gonna create the actual color words. Right, it doesn't exist. So I'll probably have that be comma separated. So first of all, how are we going to define the color? Well, if we look at the functionality, I was looking in the examples and there's a RGB colors script, which basically there's a couple ways to define colors. You can use XY, which I don't know exactly how that works, or you can use, I think, like hex values or something. But I think probably the easiest way to deal with it would be to just do XY coordinates. I mean, we can convert RGB into XY coordinates. RGB, I think, would be the easiest to deal with, so I think that's probably how we're going to do it. This way I can specify RGB values and it'll translate to something that it knows. So let's copy that, and then let's see. How am I going to want to do that? So if we have an RGB value, I'm probably going to be like red, and comma separated isn't going to work very well. So I'm probably going to do I'll probably read it as comma separated. But yeah, then I'll semicolon separate everything else. So like red would be that, for example. Yellow would be obviously 0, 255, 0. And then blue, I'll just do that one as 0, 0, 255. Oh, then that's blue. I think I'll define those colors for now, and then I can define more colors later on, but I think those are the big ones for now. So yeah, let's take that function that we just grabbed for test inside of test Philips, come down to here, paste it. That's a lot of text, but it kind of shows how it works. I think I'm going to take out some of these comments just to reduce some of the code that's in there. So that'll basically translate the red, green, and blue. So now we need to actually grab the red, green, and blue itself. So the file itself is comma separated, so therefore we can just take the load %words. We could just probably take this function. I'm probably not going to remake it. Then I can minimize duplication that way. I know it's a little bit confusing how I have that set up. So you can kind of see why good coding practices is important, because I'm trying to do some good practices, but there's other areas where it's really confusing. So you can see where that's a problem. So yeah, this load %words, what that really is load dictionary, comma separated basically. So basically once I load that dictionary, then I want to probably do a lot of the logic of translate color temp, except I will remake that function. So I'll just grab that. So what I really want to do is convert color. I might even do like a set color and then do color. That's also color, and color will not do that at all. So yeah, now it really is color words. We'll go through each one. This has to be color as well. So actually, this set color, what it should be doing is just giving me the color all by itself, right? Because then I can know it should be giving me the RGB values actually. It should be able to get the color all by itself, but also grab the RGB values. So I think the color will always be at the very end of the statement. So I could probably just figure out, yeah, I think color is always going to be at the very end of the statement, so I could take advantage of that. Actually, this will give me color all by itself, won't it? And then maybe if it's not there, then we can return false or something. Yeah, let's not do anything else then. So let's see if the color setting works. So we'll print set color of results, set colors to red or something, right? So results should end up being red. Load temp words is not defined. Right, I just have to redefine that. I'm doing load %words. And of course, temp words was really referencing the color temp, not like temporary. So that's where my variable naming might not be the best. So I think that might work better now. So line 19 failed to convert int. Actually, we are going to want to create our own function for that. Oh wait, we can just set it to a string for now, because then we'll later split it. So let's just make that a string. Yeah. And then we can split it into the individual RGB components. So now we're getting red, as we would expect. So now I should be able to set the color to blue, then the last value should be 0, 0 to 55 now. Why did that not work? Does yellow work at least? Yellow doesn't work either, which is kind of interesting. So does red actually work? Interesting how only red ends up working. So I'd assume if I have an invalid color, yeah, I get false like I should. So why does only red work? I made the classic mistake. Don't ever do an else statement like that. It should not be in the for loop at all. Very classical mistake. So orange really isn't a valid color like I would expect. How about blue though? That should be 0, 0 to 55. There we go. That's more like it. So we can kind of identify colors. How do we get it to actually set them now? So we have a way to provide RGB values using this right here. And we have a way to match the colors as well. So set color will basically give me what I want there. So I think what I might end up doing is breaking it up into what it actually is, and then maybe returning an array of the RGB values. Then I can reference each element. That might be a pretty good way for right now. So rather than returning that, I want to get the individual RGB values all by themselves. So if we have a valid color, then we'll create a array called RGB values, and we'll split. So actually we don't necessarily have to set it to a blank array. We could also set it to, so the value itself will be custom words index key. That'll be the value itself, so we can split that by the semicolon that we've been wanting to do. I think that should give us our RGB values if I'm not mistaken. So it should give us 0, 1, and 2. For some reason I thought that we'd have to use a for loop or something, but actually we can go like this. Return basically that. I think that will give us all the values. So if we print that now we have an array with the individual values. Now let's set the lights to the color that we want, all of them. Now that we have the ability to set color, which gives us the array. So we'll run b.lights. So we have a property called xy, and that does actually refer to the real xy that we're looking for. So I believe what we can do is do b.setLight I plus 1, and then this attribute is xy, and then of course this is where we call the RGB to xy function, and then we can put our RGB value right there. So this is where we might want to set our colors. Maybe I'll do a light colors equals set color result. So it grabs a color from our utterance, and then we can do like light colors index 0. I'm almost tempted to abbreviate it just to make it a lot more simplistic. Yeah, I think that's what I'll do. So like LC index 0, that's the R, the red value. LC index 1 is green. LC index 2, so that's the RGB value. So in theory, that would set the color to whatever we want it to be. So right now, because I have it set to blue, we should end up with a blue light upon running this. List is not callable. I just made a classic mistake. I'm supposed to do like the b.lights just alone. Okay, so I think we just have to convert it all to an integer. Pretty sure that all the current values are not read as an integer by default. So in set color, we want to return, so we split each element. I'm kind of tempted to go through them, right? I'll just create a variable called RGB, and then I'll do for I in the length of RGB, and essentially I'm going to convert each element into an integer. So RGB index I equals the int of RGB index I. So essentially all I'm doing is converting what is normally a string into integers. And then when I return the value RGB, then they'll all be integers, and that should get rid of the error. Right, so we're not doing, so I guess I did set that up wrong. Right, so this should be range. I just forgot that. There we go. Amazing. So now it actually converts the light colors. So now I should be able to change this to red, and then it'll turn red. I'm sorry. That was not red at all. What happened there? Let's look at RGB before we return it. That's running 3 times. I think that should only run once. That's probably happening more than it's supposed to. That's kind of a greenish color, by the way. That's what it looks like right now. Wait, it only printed that many times because of this loop right there, so that is actually expected. So actually, so RGB is correct. However, what is LC? That's probably wrong. Let's see what happens if we did yellow, and I'm now realizing I actually should have put green for that one. So that does still pull it in correctly. How about blue? So blue works fine. Yellow gives me the exact same results as red is giving me. Let's manually try it once. So if we change, let's say light 1 to 255, comma 0, 0, I would expect that to be red, right? And that's because I had the wrong number of parentheses there. So this is 0, 0 to 55. That sets the light to blue. So if I set that to 255, 0, 0, yeah, that's how the actual RGB function is working. Something is not working correctly. Is there any chance that because we have a 0 rather than a 1, like what if we had a 1 here instead? Would that change how it behaves? What if they're all 255? That sets it to a slightly whiter color. I just did a bit of research in a different environment, and apparently this function itself is actually what the glitch is. This is a little bit glitchy and it doesn't properly convert it. However, it is also worth noting that we can set the hue, brightness, and saturation too, so that would be another way to set a light. So we could also do something like change this to hue, And then I think that does 0 to 255 if I'm not mistaken. So if I did like a 0, yeah, that's technically another way to do it. If I could figure out the exact hue values, if I'm able to convert RGB into hue, saturation, and brightness, then I could break it up into those components and have it work more accurately. Now you'll notice that pretty much everything on my webcam feed is in black and white. I mean, pretty much everything in my room is in black and white right now because of that red. Because most of the objects in my room are not reflecting red, so therefore, since red is the only color being emitted, and there isn't even red being reflected on objects, it ends up appearing black and white since there's no other colors to reflect in the waves. Very weird physics stuff, huh? So apparently that RGB to XY is not 100% accurate. That's interesting. I'm just realizing there's a to-do comment right there. Probably there for a reason. But yeah, so if I... Where's that hue located? So if I change it to like, I don't know, 127, that'll probably be in like the middle of the spectrum. I changed the wrong thing actually, I believe. No, that didn't work at all for some reason. What if I change it to like 50? Why is that not changing at all? Just comment that out once and see what happens. Now it's not changing at all for some reason. When I adjust the brightness, that works. Oh, I just realized why. It's actually between 0 to 65,535. That's why. First of all, let's correct the brightness and do like 254. Yeah, so if I want the colors to work, it's not even my fault with the programming. It's that RGB to XY function is not 100% accurate. Yeah, so I should probably do like 32,767, which is about half. That probably bring me to like, oh, that's for hue. So for the brightness, that should be hue. That's why. So if I run it now, that's surprisingly what's in the middle. What if I do like the middle of that? So if I do like 50,000, let's see what that does. Yeah, so I think for my colors, I'm gonna have to find a hue, and honestly, that would be a lot easier than doing an RGB value. Just the hard part is really just how I declare it. I just have to figure out all the hue values that lead to what I want. The saturation, I'm always gonna have that be the highest saturation anyway for every color. I really just have to figure out what the hue value is. So that is basically a purplish color, in case you can't tell. So I'm not going to worry about the colors for now. Hey Mycroft, set the color temperature to normal. So yeah, I'm not going to worry about that now. You can imagine, I just have to figure out all the hue values and then I'm pretty much set. And then I get rid of that RGB conversion logic. And then that's pretty much all there is to it. I'm not going to bother with that right now, given that it's 4 in the morning. Try to finish before 4:20. You know, I was just thinking, that color that was on there before, that could technically be considered dank mode related to 420. And I could probably define that right now. And then just, yeah, put it in dank mode. But yeah, I mean, you can see how this would work. I've done the color temperature and stuff, and you see all the errors and what I would need to do differently. I just set the hue stuff, get rid of that RGB stuff, just do the hue value, and then away I go. I'm not going to do that now. So some other things I was hoping to work on sometime was maybe making it so that I can do individual lights. Like what if I just wanted to turn off one of the lights? Turn off light 1, or turn off light 2, or set light 1 to red and light 2 to blue, or something like that. How cool would that be? I don't think that would be too difficult. I'm gonna do the AND mechanism real quick, and then I'm gonna call it a night for this, because this has gone on ridiculous. Then I'll do the rest of the casual video tomorrow, or later today technically. So yeah, I think I should take my logic from here, because I don't want to get rid of it obviously, and I think I'll put it in its own little segment toward the end, because I don't necessarily want to lose that code. And then I can label it like color logic or something, and then I can figure out all that stuff later. But now I have this ready to go for future stuff, like the AND mechanism. So what if I wanted to combine multiple things together? Like set the color temperature and the brightness. I feel like I should be able to do that relatively easily. So I have all these if statements right there. So let's take a look at how my AND mechanism works on my open script. So in opt Mycroft skills, open that file. So you can see here I have this parse intents. So I could use the word and. Then I have a bunch of and separators. And that works pretty well. So I'm gonna want that function right there. Yeah, why don't we start out writing it inside of here. So on test Philips, we'll grab parse intents, set no number, or set no relative number. Then copy and paste will work just fine. So that might be faster than using the sed command. I don't know how to use AWK, so that's why I haven't been using it. I don't understand the syntax right now. Maybe in the future I'll use the AWK command. But sed works pretty well, and I like how simple it is. So yeah, what this does is if I say words that sound like and, it'll replace it with that. And word. So essentially what I want to do is split up my commands by the word and, which parse intents will actually do that. In fact, we could take a quick look at it right now. If I did parse intents results, I should get just one thing because there is no word and in there. So if I change my thing to, so I'm gonna do like change brightness to 50% and color temperature to warm, then I should end up getting basically two utterances, if you will. So technically all I have to do is run those if statements multiple times with each command, and then technically it will work. So that's technically all I think I have to do. So and sounds kind of complicated, but it is actually not that bad. So let's come into the Philips Hue one. So here I'll add that parse intents, set no number, no relative number. That way things will copy and paste correctly. Paste it there. So that'll allow me to have multiple words of and essentially. We can ignore that first part. We don't even have to worry about that. So when I have my if statement right before those if statements, we can run that parse intents. I'll do results equals parse intents with result. And then we'll just do a for loop for I in range, the length of results. And then all this stuff right here gets indented in there. Actually, why don't we just do for results in results, I think. That might work. I always forget the for each syntax, which is why I tend to not use it. However, I think that might be all that's required. And then that might allow us to compound multiple commands together. That might be all we have to do. I think we'll get it on the first try. So let's restart the skills service. Quickly go into the command line stuff. Make sure we don't have any obvious errors on here. No errors. Let's go. Okay, this is going to be really interesting. Let's see if we can compound commands together now. Hey Mycroft, set color temperature to cold and brightness to 20%. Oh, come on. Parse intents is not defined. That's BS. It is defined. Oh, we definitely made a typo when we called it. Because that's the only result of it. I was doing camel case, I guess, when I should have been doing that. That's unfortunate. Let's try it now. Hey Mycroft, set color temperature to cold and brightness to 20%. It worked. It did both of those things at once. I'm surprised how simple that was to implement. The and mechanism was a lot simpler than I thought, primarily because I've done it before. So that's kind of cool. So technically I could do a bunch of consecutive brightnesses or whatever. Hey Mycroft, set brightness to nice. That's not a thing. Hey Mycroft, set color temperature to. I hate it when it does that. Hey Mycroft, set color temperature to normal and brightness to 69% and brightness to 50%. I think it'll do all those things. Yeah, it did. I didn't notice when it went to 69 though. Guess I was distracted. Who knows what I was thinking. But yeah, it happened really fast. According to that output, it definitely happened. That's cool. So yeah, I would like to have the ability to control individual lights in the future, where I do lights 1 and 3. Now that I have the and mechanism, that should allow me to make it relatively easy to do specific lights rather than just all of them. I would also, there's some other functionality that it comes with as well, the library. So like for example, you'll notice that there's other pretty cool functions like this transition time, and this would make it transition to a certain brightness over the course of 30 seconds. So the ability to transition the lights to a certain thing over time would be kind of cool. To be able to cycle the hue color, that'd also be kind of cool. Or to like be able to create presets, like one that looks like criminal activity. Let me see if I can do that real quick. So like for example, there's no reason why I wouldn't be able to say something like set crime scene, and then yeah, looks like crime's happening right now, doesn't it? So it'd be kind of cool to be able to do a voice command that does something like that. So being able to do presets would be kind of cool. And I mean, you could imagine just how much control you would have over this because you have a library with all this programming. It gives you a lot of control. Honestly, I would almost make the argument that your imagination is pretty much the limitation in this case. I mean, you have the ability to control the hue, the color temperature, turning a light on and off, the brightness, all sorts of stuff. You can even create schedules. So you could be like, set a schedule to fade on a red light at 6 a.m., for example. Or, yeah, set a schedule to fade on a red light at 6 a.m. for 5 minutes. And then at 6 a.m., the red light will come on with the darkest brightness, and then it'll fade on over the course of 5 minutes. Wouldn't that be a cool command to have? Well, technically with this library, that should in theory be possible because it supports schedules. You can also create scenes too. You might be able to use your existing scenes that you program on the Philips Hue app. You might be able to create a strobe. You can do pretty much whatever you want, if we're being perfectly honest. Your imagination is probably the limitation here. But yeah, I think this is where I'm going to wrap up. So we got a lot more functionality on the light now, and we learned quite a bit about the process of making that possible. So hope you learned something useful here. I certainly did. So I'd consider this a neutral tutorial because the learning goes both ways. Anyway, I think that'll be it for now. So thanks for watching, and I'll continue the casual video tomorrow.